Well, LNP MP Andrew Laming joins me now as one of our regulars here on Afternoon Briefing, Queensland MP. Welcome to the program. I understand you have some criticisms about what's being announced today by the Morrison government. What are you concerned about?
Well, that's a little harsh. I'm really pointing out, PK, that there's going to be some challenges as large areas of Australia get back on its feet, and we need to make sure that those who are on job seeker payments that have been tapered are willing and ready to take up suitable work opportunities. We know that's a real challenge for business at the moment. Simply can't find staff in some cases, in other cases they're actually losing their existing staff who'd rather not come into work because they don't want to threaten their job seeker COVID supplement. So an important move today was to allow them to earn up to $300 a fortnight and not lose those payments. That's a smart move, but that also can't become a long-term move. Otherwise, once again, it can be more attractive to be earning the supplement and the $300 a fortnight and not seek out work. Finally, with JobKeeper, of course, remember that JobKeeper is attached to your original employer, and as time progresses and we go in Victoria into potentially a second 6 months of lockdown, then what you're seeing is workers who are no longer attached to their original employer where they got their JobKeeper, but they cannot be re-employed and portably take their JobKeeper allocation with them. So that's an important challenge in the hospitality sector, where increasingly they've lost their original staff over this shutdown, and then they can't re-employ anyone under JobKeeper, and that makes it very hard for them to get going again.
So just walk me through what you want there. You're saying there should be a portability ability in the payment system to go to different employers.
Well, of course, and the tax office knows absolutely what's happening both in each sector and with each business through single-touch payroll. So as they look at eligibility, first of all, they have this information coming in on the 25th of July, for instance, for the last 3 months, and they can actually see what firms are doing better in these last 3 months than in the first. They've got monthly reporting from smaller businesses or those that are owed a refund, so they're seeing that information on the 21st of each month. They've already got it for June. So they need to be actually making wholesale decisions about who's eligible for JobKeeper. Businesses shouldn't have to necessarily test themselves because the ATO already knows and should be telling the Treasury who's eligible and who isn't, because they know that already. But back to your point, if you've lost a lot of your original JobKeeper staff for a whole range of reasons because eligibility was tested in March, we've got a real problem in hospitality, particularly in Victoria, where you are effectively hiring new people but you can't access the JobKeeper for them, and those that were getting JobKeeper are long gone. So it does raise the question in a place like Victoria, should the employee be carrying that wage subsidy directly rather than being paid as a reimbursement?
Okay, so you're saying if you transferred it to the boss, the employee, the employer, if that was transferred, then they'd be able to have more flexibility in how they do it?
And that would be specifically where the ATO identified that these were sectors in distress. And so this would be, entertainment, hospitality, catering, travel, international and large events. All of these groups are likely to have had people that they've simply not been able to retain. Many were casual workers, remember, who still aren't catered for. So in many cases, that portability with the employee allows them to go out and be employed without having to pay that world's highest minimum wage, which in itself is a barrier for employers to take on new staff.
So in terms of the new job seeker, old New Start rate, the unemployment benefit, it's had so many names. Do you think this new rate, which has been reduced, should perhaps be a permanent rate? The government's only committed to December. We don't know what's going to happen after that.
And it's going to be a really patchy story, PK, by next year, where you'll see certain sectors that are crying out for staff, and you'll have others where employees, potential employees, can say they simply can't find a job where they're trained, and it's not that easy to retrain staff. It's always been the bugbear on Australia's shoulders, is training our local staff to fill jobs, and that's why we have a skilled migration program. So reskilling is slow and painful. Of course, those newly trained staff don't have experience on the job. It's going to be very, very tough to fill some of those gaps because we haven't been good at filling them in the past. So we can't just train our way out of this. The argument will be significant that we retain this $250 a fortnight. I'll be saying to every job seeker, don't expect that. It's there until Christmas. Assume it's gone in the new year and start planning ahead. The jobs aren't there yet. There's still 12 job seekers for every vacancy, but that's going to change in some of the growth sectors and certainly outside Victoria, and we want those job seekers actually doing what the term means, seeking out work as soon as it's available and knowing that they can do up to $300 a fortnight of work without losing their entitlements.
You mentioned Victoria a few times, so I want to ask you this. The Treasurer told me earlier he wanted a national scheme. He didn't want to have, you know, sort of a state-based scheme. OK, let's accept that. But the situation in Melbourne is completely different to the rest of the country. Should there be exemptions or changes for a place that's dealing with an economic downturn like that?
Not by geography, PK, because you can see that Melbourne's situation may be very different to regional Victoria. But again, the ATO has all this data. They can identify by sector and by region what areas are ready, for instance, to look for new employees. They can look for areas where JobKeeper can be tapered back. And I'm arguing for that tailored approach. It's all at the fingertips of the ATO. Single touch payroll is this enormously powerful database on tax withheld and salaries paid in every business. And I'm arguing that that information, which comes in on the 21st of every month, is a far more important guide than businesses self-assessing, because at the moment, under the new scheme, we're actually asking businesses to work out who is a full and a part-time worker, and we have to take their word for it. That information isn't provided to the ATO. So one of the risks of the current system is, again, relying on businesses to self-assess. It's not a biggie, but they'll be tempted to claim more JobKeeper than they are due, simply by reporting more full-time workers than they actually have.
Andrew Laming, thanks for joining us this afternoon.